Kenya is in turmoil. The streets are alive with protest. At the heart of the crisis is President William Ruto, a man once hailed as a champion of the people, now accused of betraying them. His fall from grace, many argue, is inextricably linked to the influence of the U.S. ambassador. U.S. Ambassador Ruto's election had raised hopes of a departure from Kenya's traditional reliance on Chinese investment. The U.S., eager to reassert its influence in the region, saw an opportunity. The ambassador, a seasoned diplomat, cultivated a close relationship with Ruto, whispering promises of Western support in exchange for a shift in allegiance. Lured by the prospect of Western aid and investment, Ruto made a fateful decision. He began to distance Kenya from China, canceling key infrastructure projects and embracing the austerity measures demanded by institutions like the IMF and World Bank. This pivot, however, came at a steep price. President Ruto, the cancellation of Chinese projects led to job losses and stalled development. The austerity measures, meanwhile, hit ordinary Kenyans hard, driving up the cost of living and exacerbating existing inequalities. Ruto, it seemed, had miscalculated. Kenya's economy, once a beacon of growth in East Africa, began to falter. The withdrawal of Chinese investment left a void that Western institutions were slow to fill. The IMF and World Bank, known for their stringent loan conditions, demanded painful economic reforms that further squeezed the Kenyan people. The promised influx of Western investment failed to materialize. Economic analyst media, American companies hesitating, instability concerns, corruption fears. American companies, wary of instability and corruption, hesitated to commit. The much-vaunted US-Kenya trade deal, touted as a cornerstone of the new relationship, remained elusive. As the economic situation deteriorated, so too did Ruto's grip on power. The man who had promised prosperity delivered hardship. The people, their patience exhausted, took to the streets. Ruto's attempts to quell the unrest, deploying riot police, arresting opposition figures, only served to inflame the situation. The crisis deepened, pushing Kenya towards the precipice. From the bustling streets of Nairobi to remote villages, a wave of anger swept across Kenya. Protests, once sporadic and localized, became a daily occurrence. The people, their voices hoarse from chanting, demanded Ruto's resignation. "Kenyan citizen Ruto must go," became a rallying cry, echoing through the streets, a testament to the depth of public anger. The protests, however, were about more than just the economy. They were an expression of deep-seated frustration with corruption, inequality, and a political class seen as out of touch. The government's response was swift and brutal. Riot police, armed with tear gas and batons, clashed with protesters. Opposition leaders were arrested, their voices silenced. The media, once vibrant and free, faced intimidation and censorship. Protester. The people, though, remained undeterred. Their demand was clear: change, and it had to start with Ruto stepping down. Section 4, A Nation Adrift. As Kenya spiraled deeper into crisis, the international community watched with growing concern. Western governments, once eager to embrace Ruto, now distanced themselves, issuing carefully worded statements expressing concern and urging restraint. China, observing the unfolding chaos, maintained a studied silence. The cancelled infrastructure projects, once symbols of Chinese ambition, now stood as monuments to Ruto's miscalculation. The crisis in Kenya, however, had implications far beyond its borders. As a key regional player, Kenya's instability threatened to destabilize the entire Horn of Africa. The flow of refugees fleeing the unrest put a strain on neighboring countries. Section 5, Kenya at a crossroads. Kenya stands at a crossroads. The path forward is fraught with uncertainty. Ruto, his authority diminished, clings to power, but his days seem numbered. The opposition, emboldened by the protests, senses an opportunity. The economy, meanwhile, continues to teeter on the brink. The IMF and World Bank, their initial enthusiasm for Ruto's reforms long evaporated, are left to grapple with the consequences of their own making. Restoring stability and trust will require a monumental effort. It will demand dialogue, compromise, and a willingness to address the root causes of the crisis. Whether Kenya's leaders are up to the task remains to be seen.